We'd like to welcome everyone out to the Payson City Planning Commission on Wednesday, November 8th, 2023. We are going to start with an invocation from Commissioner.
Our great good summer Father, grateful for this chance we have to meet under such favorable circumstances and in such safety. We're grateful for this chance to meet as Planning Commission. We pray that Spirit might be with us. We're grateful for the blessings and the freedoms we enjoy, and pray that might bless us to continue to always appreciate them and show gratitude. Pray that might be able to help our discussions, that they will be civil, and that especially we can help continue to mold the beautiful city of Payson that we live in. We ask for these favors and blessings in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
I forgot to mention that we have five commissioners on site, one joining online, and Commissioner Frisbee is. We will start with the approval of the minutes from the meeting of October 25th. Discussion from the commissioners.
We approve the consent agenda.
We have a motion from Commissioner Warder,
Second.
second from Commissioner Morgan. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Moving on to number 4, public forum. This is a chance for anyone in the public to get up and talk to us about anything that is not on today's agenda.
Does that mean us?
Maggie, if you want to talk about
Okay.
Spring Creek,
Right.
we'll do it during that time.
During
When
During
we
the
get to
public
that
hearing.
item,
Public
we're
hearing,
doing
okay.
things that are not.
this is a public agenda.
Okay,
So I move that we close the public forum if there's no one that wants to step forward that has any public forum items.
I second.
okay, we'll move on to item 5.1, general plan amendment, Payson City Planning, Payson City General Plan Amendment to consider the proposed Spring Creek area specific plan to be incorporated into the general plan.
That's me. Right. So, first of all, let me just say that I'm so happy that we are finally to this point. The Spring Creek area specific plan has been a really great process. I personally want to thank everybody that's been involved in this over the last few years. I inherited this project, and it's been a really, really great opportunity to get to know some awesome people and to go through this. So just to give you a little bit of an update, we held an open house meeting last week that was really well attended, and had some good conversation for almost 2 hours. And that was the most recent one of several of those types of meetings that have been held over this time. We've gotten some really good feedback, and I'm sure that there are a lot of people that want to talk tonight. And so rather than listen to me go on and on, we'll get to that point as quickly as possible. I do have several slides, but they should go pretty quickly. So this is just an outline of the study area of the area specific plan for the Spring Creek area, and shows that it originally started out with the red dotted line and then was expanded a little bit based on what we were trying to achieve and just area that made sense. What a specific plan is and what it is not, I think is really, really important to understand. Basically, a specific area plan is an advisory document. It's an advisory document that helps guide the growth of our city and the future plans for our city. It's just a tool that helps property owners, helps staff, it helps city council members understand what the future development pattern for our city is going to be. It further refines the general plan, and its purpose is to implement the goals and policies of the general plan. Just as important is what a specific area plan is not. It is not a new zoning map. There's no zone change associated with this plan. It is not an annexation petition. No new areas of the city are coming into the city at this time because of this plan. It's not a change to any current zoning ordinance or anything like that. And nor does it require property owners to change how they're currently using their property. It's simply a guide for the future. And then the most important thing on this slide is obviously what's underlined. Property owners determine when land use changes. The purpose of this planning effort is just to help determine what those new uses are going to be. Not a timeline for when that's going to happen, just to give us a kind of something to shoot at as far as what we're going to be looking at. This is the future land use map that's been developed for the Spring Creek area plan. It represents a mix of housing types, expanded business park and light industrial areas, as you can see from up there, parks and greenways, a little bit of neighborhood commercial nodes, and then future parks and roadways. Those will be developed on a grid system. And then again, the most important part of this map is probably at the bottom as well, where it says the gross density for this area is calculated at about 1.78 units to the acre, or a little less than 2 units to the acre. The net density, which is calculated by taking out the roads in areas like that, is calculated about 2.5 units to the acre. The general plan calls for this area of our city to be for the residential area to be about 2 to 5 units to the acre. So this is significantly well, it reaches that, but definitely on the lower end of that density calculation. One thing that I do want to highlight as I continue to go through this, as all of us continue to go through this, there's a misprint in here that says light or heavy industrial uses. That needs to go before it's adopted. There are no heavy industrial uses proposed in this plan. Specifically, the city council determined that we do not want to expand heavy industrial uses in this area. That was determined over a year ago. And so only light industrial uses would be considered in the darker purple area. So what do all of these different land use designations mean? The green area and the very, very faint yellow, pale yellow, whatever color you want to call that. These are rural residential slash large lot residential. So the light green, light yellow color is up to 2 units to the acre. The green part is a minimum of 1 acre per unit in that area. So the idea of smaller farms, smaller ranchette areas, large lot residential type thing. Low density residential, single family detached homes are considered in this area. It's the yellow part of the map. The average of 4 units to the acre is what's being considered here. Mixed density residential is the brown part of the map. This is strategically located along the large transportation corridor of this plan, which is the 8 South connection to 5600 West, and then a node of that type of development along Utah Avenue, 2nd South, 10400, whatever you want to call that road, and in that specific area. This is single-family detached homes on small lots, or clustered cottage homes or townhouses. That's the type of development pattern that would be considered in this area, and an average of 8 units to the acre as far as density goes here. The red parts on this map are what we consider neighborhood scale commercial. On the right of the screen, you can kind of see a small depiction of what might be intended there, just convenience store, gas station type use, small cafe, small retail business space. Nothing elaborate, nothing extensive. The maximum amount of acreage that's been considered for this is roughly about 5 acres of property in the entire 1,160 acres of the plan. Preservation of open space is obviously a really, really important part of this plan. You can see on here that greenways around existing natural features have been considered and are going to be incorporated as part of this plan. One thing that you don't see on this plan is specific areas for parks and things like that. That is because those can go anywhere on this map. We didn't want to specifically say this is where it's going to be or this is where it's going to be. We wanted to make sure that that occurs according to the requirements of the park's master plan, and where those parks should be will be determined at the time of development.
Clarify a little bit about what that process is, who dictates how many acres, how much park? As a developer comes in and gives a proposal, how does that dialogue?
Great question. So that's determined by an algorithm that's basically set that says for every X number of people, you need this much park space. So depending on the size of development, that park space might be small or that park space might be really big. That's why we didn't want to say this is where it's going to be X, Y, Z, because it's just if it's this, then it's this. And then it has to be provided within that location. Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay. For expanded business park and light industrial uses, the 2 shades of purple on this map, light manufacturing are intended to be enclosed. We don't want any further expansion of things that have already been problematic. But we do want to provide space that makes sense for increased business use and business expansion within our city. It's an important part of how a city grows, is making sure that we have good jobs for our residents that will be here in the future, close to home. And so this plan has been designed to do that. Additionally, as part of one of the appendices of this plan is a set of design standards for the business park and industrial areas that determine how those spaces should look and how they should function. As part of this plan, extensive analysis was done into infrastructure, and I put this one in here specifically because I want to clarify something that I said in the meeting last time, and that's related to water. I had said that the Red Bridge well would be sufficient for this area. This is further clarification of that statement. So the Red Bridge well is sufficient for what we have currently. At complete build out, or what we would expect for land uses to change in this area, it is anticipated that an additional well would be required at that time. The timing of all of that, on what's developing at what time and things like that, that's an important clarification that I need to add to say there is a well anticipated in this area when the circumstance necessitates it. We anticipate that that would be quite a bit into the future. We understand that there are agricultural uses that are happening there and that will continue to happen there for a long, long time. It's important for those agricultural users to know that those agricultural uses can continue for as long as they want. Water will still be delivered to them. It's a requirement that even if development goes in, that those waterways to maintain those agricultural uses still have to be preserved. And so that's just an important clarification that I wanted to add tonight. This is just a pressurized irrigation plan. Location of pond, undetermined, but general location is you need gravity in order to make it work. So it needs to be on a hillside. But this kind of lets people understand where those lines would be and what would be required for future development. Same thing for, sorry. Oh, I put it in twice. This says pressurized irrigation, but it's actually sewer. This just indicates where a future lift station would be ideally located for the region in order to get it back. There may be additional ones that would be required for specific developments and things like that, but regionally, this is how the sewer system would work in the area to gravity flow as much as possible and then to be lifted to the sewer treatment plant. Along 10,400. Or no, along 10,000 south. I just went through 3 pages that represents tens of millions of dollars worth of infrastructure improvements. I think that's important to understand that these types of improvements will take time. These types of improvements take a great deal of investment. And that's one of the reasons that we really like to plan, so that we can make sure that when developers come to ask us, what can we do on this piece of property, that we are led and driven by what the plan says, not necessarily by what needs to pencil in a plan. And so if somebody is coming to us at the very far west part of this plan and saying, I want to develop here, but I need to have X number of units in order to do so, then that gives the council more understanding of saying, well, this is actually what the plan has said, and that's the density that we are going to stick with. It just gives them safety, it gives them the opportunity to make informed decisions rather than knee-jerk reactions. Based on all of this information, and I'm happy to answer any questions, and I know that we're going to have a public hearing tonight, and that's really important. But based on all of this information and all of these analysis that has been done, staff does recommend that the Planning Commission forward a positive recommendation that the City Council adopt this plan. We feel it's really good. We feel it gives good guidance for the future. There are some alternative actions that the Planning Commission could take if after tonight and after this reading through the staff report and the Planning Commission public hearing and discussion that we have. If you have further questions that need to be analyzed, you're welcome to remand it back to staff and let us know what those questions are. Or you're always welcome to recommend denial if there are specific findings of why this shouldn't be adopted. So, with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have now, and then after the public hearing, of course.
Robert,
Yes.
does this area specific plan or Payson City Code involve any dark sky lighting requirements as it sits right now?
No, not right now. If that's something that you'd like incorporated, we could look at an amendment to our zoning ordinance to include that. We have been looking at that. And if we did it as an amendment, it would apply citywide rather than just to a specific area plan.
Robert, I have a question. Based on what you have crafted and just reviewed, this also just meets the code that we have based on state regulations and stuff.
It is a state requirement that all cities have a general plan. We do have a general plan, and general plans are generally at the 1,000 or 10,000 foot level, like we've talked about in the past. The specific area plan is more on the 500 foot level to give more emphasis and more detail on a specific area of the city, but with the common goal of implementing the goals and policies of the general plan.
Thank you.
Mhm.
We need a motion for the public hearing.
I make a motion, Commissioner, Madam Chair, that we do as you suggested.
Motion by Emily. Second. Second by Commissioner Brinker. The public, you are welcome to come up. Oh, sorry. Everyone in favor? Yes.
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 You can come up to where Robert is standing. Please state your name for the record. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes. If someone has said what you think, you can just say, I agree with them. You don't need to rehash it.
I'll leave this up for the time being. If anybody wants me to go to a different page, I'm happy to do so. And then we did receive some public comment from Colette Christensen, which I'll read in at the end.
Here's some other concepts that were proposed a couple of years ago that I feel are more adequate, that really,
Can you please?
oh, they can hear me, I'm loud. Oh, Maggie Wilshire. I'm the red half circle there. Okay, my home's gonna be gone with this development. Those are some other concepts that were proposed in 2020 that would not take my home, that would not take other homes, but just simply alfalfa fields, hay fields, whatever, okay? Also, I want to set the record straight with me and Colette. We were appointed to be on the steering committee, and while on the steering committee, we did not agree with this concept at all. So I just want to make that public known, that we felt like we were not listened to on the steering committee, and that we disagreed with most of that that's on that board right there. Also, I was gonna stand up here and tell you a list of all the reasons why this should not be proposed, why this should not be allocated, why this should not be okayed. And I feel that the Spring Creek development and its concepts were here to line the pockets of a few. There's going to be condos built in my backyard, 3-story condos. I don't agree with that. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think this road coming out to a T, there's no other place for that large road to go. There's no through street with that large road. And there's already a street you can see on 790 that needs to be there. I don't want to tell you about the greed of the people who for the past decade have had you fooled into believing that this is a great idea. And that this is what Payson City needs. I won't tell you in detail, though I could, about the millions of dollars for water, sewer, and other amendments that will cost Payson City and the impact it will have on West Mountain. I won't tell you in detail about how the traffic, safety, and Payson's small town feel will change. I won't tell you in detail about the agriculture and the impact that it has out there. The agriculture commissioner said, cities, save your agricultural land. Let people produce. It saves on food. We in West Mountain share what we grow. Out in West Mountain, people have sold things to the small farmers on the side of the road for them to sell. I won't tell you in detail about how the whole truths have seemed to be not told in the development of this plan. and that we are not completely informed of what eventually is gonna come and what eventually is gonna be built out there. But I will tell you about the people in West Mountain. We are friends, family, and wards. We are self-sufficient, hardworking, and generous. We are kind, helpful, and peaceful neighbors. We are country folk. We don't always need to drive to town to get our milk, bread, and eggs. We have our cows, we make our bread, and we raise our chickens for eggs. We find being prepared and industrious, like having our large gardens, very important. And we are farmers. I'm not saying that other people in Payson or anywhere else are not these things. But we have bought our land out there because we choose that way of life. We feel this development will change our way of life. You say the owners can do whatever they want on their land. But when I have a 3-story condo looking in my backyard and I'm raising my cows or pigs or chickens and they protest the smell, I think that changes my way of life. Please reconsider passing the development as it is. I don't feel that people living in a 3-story condo or the developers who are choosing to build those understand this way of life. We are farmers. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Lance Wilson. I didn't plan to come tonight, and then when I got here, I didn't plan to say anything, but I just couldn't control myself any longer. I live north of this area, between 9200 and 9600 south. The 2 large warehouses that have just been erected within the last 30 days just off of Main Street near the Geneva gravel pit and sewage treatment plant, the veterans home. Unfortunately, I can see those 2 warehouses from my kitchen window. It's tough to look out my window and be able to see those and realize that that's my future. Especially after the years and the tireless effort you put into building a home and having a family in a rural area, and realize that you could be surrounded by purple. My hope would be that the city of Payson and those involved in the planning of Payson would recognize at least the railroad tracks and understand that you already have, if we were to, Robert, look on the other side of those railroad tracks, all of that area is already purple. It's already industrial. If I'm not mistaken, it's pretty much all zoned to be developed, either light industrial, expanded business park, hopefully not heavy industrial, right? Flex industrial, flex commercial. But everything west of the railroad tracks, in my eyes, it just makes sense to have that be a definitive boundary to help protect the residents, to help protect the rural community. There's just too much color on that map. It should all be green, agricultural green, in my eyes. And I know that that's probably, not ever going to happen, but at least there should be a more definitive boundary. There's plenty of industrial on the east side of those railroad tracks. And I would think that for the sake of preserving some rural heritage, some type of more protection against having to look out your kitchen window and see a warehouse, I think that purple ought to move to the east side of those railroad tracks, and that's where that industrial could happen. And then from there, we can try and chip away at adjusting some of the red circles that are there on top of people's houses. And that's my big thing, and I know I'm probably over the 3 minutes, Robert, is there's residences, there's people, there's existing homes on top of those colors. And to just say, hey, let's just put industrial right here. Well, what about the people that live right there? Shouldn't their their feelings, their interests, their investment in their properties matter. And I would hope that the planning commission would reject this until that can be rectified. Thank you.
My name is Hobie Metz. I've been a member, as you were, a resident of West Mountain since about 1973. I currently live in the county, but I'm inside of a zone that wants to be, that's going to be annexed at some point in time. I realize that. I live at 10505 South, 5200 West, really close to the LDS church out there, a stone throw away from it. I was here last board meeting, and I appreciated Bob Mills and the way he directed the meeting, and we all got a chance to say what we'd like to say. And I and my wife wanted to come here just to reiterate some of the things that are important to us. You know, you really have a jewel of a place, a piece of real estate in this world that can benefit your children, besides making it industrial, light commercial. You've got a place, an opportunity to provide ball fields. Do you remember Hillman Field? We all went to the ball field. I was a little coach, ball player coach. And it was nice to have a place for children to play baseball, to grow up, soccer fields, things like that. And I watched where the racetrack was, and the racetrack was kind of a part of Payson. And then it became, what other types of, it became ball fields. It was one time a rodeo grounds, and I slowly started to see that go away. My wife and I, when we got married, we moved uptown and we lived on Utah Avenue, 1983. And that first year, we had irrigation water, and we had to surrender our water rights to Payson City for pressurized irrigation. And they said to us at that time, they said that we'd be able to water anytime we wanted, as much as we wanted, with that pressurized irrigation. Well, guess what happened? All of our water was diverted to the golf course to keep it green. So we no longer had our irrigation to keep our lawns green and flowers and gardens and things like that. It had to divert to a golf course. And heck, I can't even afford to go golfing. Pasture pool, I don't mind going with my son, but it wasn't for me, but I could see how it was for others, but it was very expensive. And to take our water like it did was heartfelt to me. I didn't care for that. But what I'd like to also say, some of my concerns are water wells, water rights. And I understand Robert talking about these water tanks. Not too long ago in the town of Benjamin, a big water well was drilled, and immediately 5 other houses lost their water pressure, and they had to drill deeper. One person I won't mention had to go deep enough that it was a $40,000 bill just to get water from a well. So one of my concern is the pressure that's put on the water. I know there's an aquifer about 185 feet deep, or 45 feet. And then there's another waterfur about 330 feet. And that waterfur that's about 145 to 150 feet, that's the one I'm in. And I remember there was one year where I was pumping sand and worried about whether I had to go deeper for water. And we're all out there, we're all residential people, and we're all out there on wells. So I see those pictures of light industrial and residential units, like Maggie said, condos and things like that. That's a lot of pressure on a aquifer, and one that I don't know can be sustained. And but I just want to mention that water is a very important subject, and by past experience from water, having my water rights taken away, telling me I'd be able to irrigate as much as I want, as often as I want, wasn't the truth. It was diverted. It was diverted where? Well, I didn't really care for a golf course, but not to say that a golf course isn't what some other people might enjoy, but that was an experience that I experienced firsthand. in Payson City. The businesses, I think live businesses are a gateway to other businesses. You can't help but see it. You can't help but see other businesses come in, and somebody that owns 10, 20 acres and a business comes in and says, hey, we'd like to put a store here. They're gonna it's gonna be attractive to the landowner, but it's gonna be an unattractive thing for us that want to live in a rural environment. Everything that we need is less than 3 miles away from West Mountain. You've got Walmart, you've got your industrial park. I hate that winding road, and I think it's a loss of property, but I hate driving that. But I know most of it's already, that's commercial use. It's not light industrial, it's industrial use. But you've got everything you need that side of the railroad tracks. Why do you want to take a little piece of heaven that you could consider yourself as a piece of heaven, where it's a rural environment, where you can go out there and you can relax, you know, ball fields and things for your children to engage in, grandchildren to engage in without cement. And so I think that, and then crime. I'm a former law enforcement officer, love my job, but I know what I see. A lot of the DUI arrests I made and a lot of the crime that I got involved with were in little areas where there's a store, a convenience store or something like that. Box Elder County and things like that. I made a lot of arrests around areas that had what you would consider light commercial. You'll bring crime out there by making that light commercial area out there. So why not keep that little piece of heaven that you have out there for your grandchildren and your great-grandchildren to enjoy, whether it's parks, whether it's pools. This thing that Spanish Fork's putting in, man, that sounds awesome, where they've got a pool and a recreational facility. I went to their meeting, Christy and I went to their meeting, and holy mackerel, how beautiful is that? Why don't you plan on something like that out there on West Mountain? Where you could have kids going out there to learn how to swim. How many kids get to grow up learning how to swim? Swim lessons, recreation. The equestrian park could also be a place for people to engage in physical activity. Women can walk with each other and cackle like hens around that area without worrying about being run over or anything like that. What I'm trying to say is you've got a gem of a place that's farm ground, that's a place where you can mold it into a piece of heaven for the city residents to go to. Don't give that up. Once you start that light commercial, it's going to grow. Once you start those condos, you're going to have a lot of what I would consider crime. What do kids have to do if they live in these condos? What do? They run around and they eventually get in trouble. But if you had a place out there, ball fields and other kind of recreations that kids could get involved with, how cool is that? Why get rid of that and start putting commercial property out there? And that's what I like to say. And I appreciate the opportunity.
Kimmy K. Jones, and I'm the one that's going to be right next to Maggie's house. I'm right there where it says 2900 West, the little red half circle with the yellow dot. That would be me. You know, we moved out there because we wanted to be away from the city life, bought the property how many years ago, and I just look at all those little dots on that map of people that did the same thing, that bought in the rural area to have their cows or their horses or their goats or their chickens, raise their crops, and look at every one of those lives that are going to be upended and taken away because of the way that their development is going. I don't think there was enough input from the citizens out there. I don't think there was due process that was served. And I think that the committee should send this back for more input from the residents that are out there that are going to be truly affected by this. And yes, developers can come in and they can do whatever they want, but what about the people that are going to have their lives upended? Because this has been decided for them without them having any say on what's going to happen to their property. Because I look at mine, now I'm commercial. Does that mean I build a Maverick in front of my house and let my little boy run it? But then I also have a trail. How much of my property am I going to lose from that trail on the side by the main road and the trail behind and the in front to accommodate? Because you're going to have to widen 5600 West if you're going to have that road coming off there. I just look at all the houses that are affected there and I think, why on earth did we not look at something? I know there are wetlands out there, but why did we not look at doing something for the less people affected? Why is the road not already where an existing road is, where there are fewer people affected? But I look at all of the houses in that area that are going to be affected, and obviously they don't know that's going on. And I just think, I don't think word was spread like it should have to let the people know that things are going to be changed and they will not have an option when they sell their home. When I sell my home, what's going to happen? Can I sell residential or am I going to have to sell commercial? We put a lot of time and money into developing our house, and someone's going to dictate to us now what we can do with this house. And that doesn't seem right. After you've invested your life savings and prepared for retirement, and now to have someone come in and dictate what's going to happen to your property, that you can't just sell it to anyone because someone else is going to make that choice for you. I don't think that's right. And I think this plan needs to be rejected and given more time so that the people out there can have more say and more input. And maybe they could put their heads together and come up with other things. But I just think that the committee needs to reject this because I don't think that the people out there have been included in this planning. And I don't agree with it.
I have the right to hit him. I'm related to him. My name is Christy Metz. I'm married to Hobie. I was born and raised in West Mountain. I spent my whole life there. I understand people wanting to sell. In fact, if my dad was alive today, he would probably have sold that piece that my brother sold. I understand developers need to come in and it does need to happen. What I don't understand is they come in, why do they have to change my way of life? Is there not a way this can be done that my little dot gets told now that it's going to be 4 houses per acre? I honestly can't even, I know it happens. I look at my property, I can't even conceive putting 4 houses per acre on my 5, 8, and 7, whatever lot. I can't even comprehend that. I was raised out there. I was raised being free to run and have all this space. And that's why I lived there, was for that to happen. To be able to have my children, my grandchildren enjoy that. And I understand the selling and wanting the money to sell your property so you can move and retire. But I cannot sell my property and find anything to replace it in Utah County for what I'll get for it. I can't. There's no way I can find that another piece of property like that to help me. And it's all because I realize developers need to make money. People don't want to farm anymore. But why can't just them be impacted? Why do I have to be impacted? Why does somebody have to lose their home so a road can be run? Just so a developer can open it up. I get development, I get change. We see it all the time. But why do all of our dots have to disappear so that someone else can be happy? Because we're happy. We didn't ask for this. We didn't ask for it to come out. Only the big people had the big chunks of land, so they have the most power. So once again, it's the rich and the powerful. And the rest of us just have to take the knocks and live with it. So where do I go? Where do I go? There's no answer to that.
I can't believe I'm doing this, but I'm Jody Silville. I grew up out in West Mountain also. I agree with everybody, with everyone that has said something. Why I'm standing up here is I wish that my son was here. At the last meeting, my son lives in that yellow section where all the industrial is going. My son has complained, I know, to city council and about the noise ordinance out there already. I wish my son was here, so I'm standing up for my son and all the families that are affected in that yellow part. Also, I'm standing up for my friends, Maggie, and everyone else that will be losing their home. I'm like Christy, my home will have 4 units of homes on that. I grew up next door to the house that I live in. My dad and my grandfather built that home that I live in. The only reason I would like to see is the noise ordinance in that purple area right there. Thank you.
Anyone else want to speak while we have the public hearing open?
So I'm just gonna read this in for Colette, who can't be here tonight. No, quick. Okay. This is a prepared statement from Colette Christensen regarding the Spring Creek Development Plan and the public hearing on November 8th, 2023. I know growth is inevitable, but I would like to advocate for smart growth. I would like our city development team and city council to consider the strengths of Payson and what we offer our community. Let's have a long-term vision and not be at the will of developers. People move to Payson for a slower pace, more space, and our small town feel. We currently have a very low average income level, one of the lowest in Utah County. How do we improve that and attract high income level residents? Do we have areas that are attractive to a more diverse resident base, or are we only developing for low income, high density housing units that line the pockets of developers and do nothing for our community? Developers do not care what they leave behind after they get their payday. Residents in high density housing are not long-term or vested community members and can be a drain on our law enforcement and other programs. I encourage Payson City to maintain a more rural zoning and larger minimum lot size west of the train tracks, only single unit dwellings, lot size increasing as you move west of the city, and more half, 1 acre and 2 acre lots. This will provide an area for those seeking larger lots, homesteading and or agricultural opportunities. It will create a buffer to our well-established orchards, dairies, and farming. These farms provide income and support hundreds of families. We need to protect that way of life and agricultural use. West Mountain and South Utah County provides the majority of all the agricultural goods grown in Utah and is one of the largest producers of tart cherry, a growing industry with nutritional supplementation. This land cannot be replaced or found further south. The Strawberry Canal system that brings critical irrigation water to the water valley ends here. I question the validity of the 800 South extension planning. If the road replacement was in fact highly influenced by a couple of landowners, then were other options even evaluated or considered? Is that placement the best for traffic and growth coming from Genola and growing communities to the west, or the heavy trucks and commercial vehicles that need freeway access? It doesn't seem ideal to dogleg for wetlands, have a long overpass span to clear 2 railroad lines and end at a small 2-lane local road. So is it only ideal for those with financial gain? Is the road impact study and planning legally sound or full of greed and conflicts of interest? I do not feel like the community has been heard. Our voices are muffled by the money. The Spring Lake, excuse me, the Spring Creek plan has not changed over the year or more of development. The area residents have continued to voice concerns without response. We have serious safety concerns and livelihoods at risk and want to see the changes we have been asking for. I oppose the Spring Creek development plan. We have started a formal petition of the current Spring Creek plan and will be submitting the signatures and petition to Payson City. Thank you, Colette Christensen.
We're ready for a motion.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Morgan. All in favor?
Yes.
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 Discussion?
I have a question for Robert.
Go ahead, Ryan.
A lot of conversation has come about the placement of the road and not using 790, but going through property owners and existing homes. Could you speak to the plans and the conversations that were had and even studies that were had of why the road is where it is? And before that, though, I just want to clarify, and Robert, correct me if I'm wrong. This is a plan. This is not a planned annexation. This is not a proposal to annex this portion of West Mountain into Payson City. And I just want to impress upon all of us that on the Planning Commission, this will be the last time we see this plan, because now subdivisions are an administrative action, not a legislative action. And so we need to pay special attention to these plans, because this is really where our power lies. And I just want to I want to thank the residents that are here, but also remind them and all of us know it's not the current residents that are going to sell their land. It's their kids and their grandkids. And we do need to have some kind of plan in place to protect West Mountain from becoming all high density from these kids and grandkids selling. And so we do need a plan in place. This is not an annexation.
So there are a couple things there that I would love to clarify. First of all, you're correct, Ryan, that this is just a plan. This is not an annexation petition or anything like that. But I do want to clarify something. This is not the last time that you'll see this plan. You're going to be seeing a lot of whatever plan is ever developed, because the colors up on here represent zoning for what would be anticipated in the future. And every time somebody comes in to do a development or whatever, a zone change would have to occur. And so that becomes critical in reevaluating, relooking at this plan. And this is hopefully supposed to guide what that future development is. I'm going to say something really quick. You'll notice that the dots on this plan were strategically left on the plan. We wanted people to realize that there are residences out there already. That was really, really important to help people understand that this does affect a lot of people. We weren't planning in a vacuum. And I understand that there's a lot of emotion that goes into this. And I understand that Christy's going to beat me up at our next family reunion. But I want it very clearly understood that a lot of thought was given to who's out there already and what this means. And what you're looking at up on this photo or up on this screen right now is not tomorrow. I want that to sink in. This is not tomorrow. You're probably looking at 20 to 25 years of development and growth. And we're going to relook at this plan several times during that period. The other thing that I want to clarify that Ryan asked about was the road. So everybody knows and everybody's heard about the 8 South corridor. The 8 South corridor was a desire of the city to make sure that there would be a good connection from the far west part of what would be eventually our city to the 8 South interchange. A study was commissioned independent of this plan and completed prior to obviously the adoption of this plan. Through the analysis of that study, a preferred corridor was identified, and that's what you see on this plan. That's what we incorporated after that plan was accepted by the city council, this corridor right through here. The reasoning for the placement of this study the placement of this corridor according to the study was to find an optimal way to get over 2 railroad tracks, land at an appropriate location, and then continue on. Recognizing that 790 South exists already. It's already a road, right? So to any logical person, why doesn't it just go right straight across, right? It's not exactly how it works in real life, though. You have to get up and over and come down. And then instead of circling back in one giant big S, it made more sense, according to that study, to do up, over, and straight across. And that is the reason for that alignment. I think I answered those questions. Any others that you have for me, Ryan? Okay. I'll just stay here. You guys are in discussion.
I've just been making some notes of what the various speakers have said and just some observations. I just hear a great deal of fear of change. People live there, they've got a lifestyle, they dug their roots in, and there's just natural fear. There's just a huge fear of change about what might happen out there. I think we get that. I think that's something we have expressed to us when something is going on in their neighborhood. How's this going to happen? There's a few things to know about how the processes work with this. And we've heard some of that. One of the perceptions I think I picked up on was that the city drives the change. And that's not how it works. The city plans based on what they think, what we think is good for the city in the long term. We want a community that's good to live in, that has the things that we need. It seems pretty important, for example, that we have a good connection between the 800 South interchange and that West Mountain area. There isn't one there today, but it just seems to make sense that we have a connection out there. That's the kind of thing the city's looking for in terms of planning for the future. What makes a good community? Transportation is a piece of that. We've all talked about some other aspects of utilities and water and all of those kind of things. Those things make a good community if they're done right. The city is concerned that they be done right. What I also had the perception in hearing the comments tonight is that there's a group of large landowners who may dictate what happens out there at the cost to to the small landowners that are out. That they have a bigger voice. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but the state of Utah has regulations that prescribe that an annexation cannot take place unless a certain percentage of landowners or land value is met. And so if you want to oppose an annexation, then you could look at how many of you and how what your land's worth and this kind of thing as a way to oppose an annexation that would come along down the road. But of course, there are the factors that we've already talked about. This isn't going to happen tomorrow. What happens when your children have this and the developer comes in and says, sell me your land, we'll annex it into the city and you can retire. You can live off the money that comes from the land. That happens. We see that happening in communities all over the state of Utah and elsewhere. That's something, when a person holds title to the land, they are entitled to use it according to zoning and other plans. So that's not something the city controls. It happens when it happens. And the developer's going to make that decision to proceed when he feels like he can make his dollar doing so. So what the city tries to do is look at what a good community is. What is going to make a place that people want to live? We develop these plans. These plans give us leverage. As was mentioned, if somebody comes in and they want to annex an area that we have in yellow there, and they say they want to put in a bunch of condominiums and high density housing, we have some leverage to tell them, no, we're not going to zone for that in this area. But we do recognize that there are a lot of young families that are needing housing and lower cost housing. And sometimes those condominium projects are more within their budget. So we chose a place for them along the main corridors. I didn't personally make this plan. I don't want to give that impression, but that's why these things are done, is to try to figure out if you're gonna grow, how should you grow, and what should this be like? That's probably all I want to say at this point.
Robert, I have a question of how long we've been talking about this, not I mean tonight, but I mean, when was this originally proposed? How long has it been studied? How has your group come to where you've proposed it again tonight so we can forward it to the city council if the road goes up?
Sure. Jill, you guys started in 2021, right? Yeah, I think it was around June. Like that. June of 2021, I was hired for Payson City in November of 2021, and it is now November of 2023. So it's been about 2.5 years. The initial steering committee was formed. We wanted to get additional feedback. So additional members of that committee were added, brought on to give additional feedback and things like that. Maggie is absolutely right that this represents a cumulative arrival at a decision of land use, not a complete consensus of land use. So I want to acknowledge that fully. If you'd like to, I'm sure that she'd love to entertain additional time to comment on that. But the reality is that no plan represents everybody's exact wants. It's a culmination of desires of landowners, desires of the city, what we foresee is what's going to be feasible for an area. And then we wrap that up in a big pie and try and bake it.
That's one of the things that, at least in our last work session, we were talking about zoning. And how we want to, during our time on planning commission, to be able to provide our input as far as how we think it should look. In all of these areas, you know, as far as, and I did, some of us, I think, did homework of drawing, you know, less light industrial, right? And it is definitely something that is a tall task to ask, but I just curious based on when you inherited what had already started when you came on.
Yeah. So let me just clarify, and I think that your comments and Blair, I think your comments are really great in that this is just our best guess of what the city needs at this point, right? The city currently is at a population of about 23,000 people. You can see that our business park is filling up. We have very little space there left. But at one time that was almost completely empty, right? It takes time. It took about 20 years for that to start getting to the point where space was needed. And that's simply what this is just consideration for what the future is going to need. When at build out, our population expectation is about 60,000 people. And where are they going to be? What uses are they going to require? How close are they going to be? Again, that is driven at the discretion of property owners, but we just have to have a plan of how that's going to happen. If you want to make the whole thing green, that's okay with me. If you want to make the whole thing yellow, that's okay with me. That's at the discretion of the city council, right? Our job is just to give you the data and our best recommendation.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
No, my comment on this matter would be, I believe I was appointed to the Planning Commission about the time the state legislation kind of mandated that the cities put together a master plan. And basically that was so everybody had an idea of how things would grow. Now from everybody's comments that we've heard tonight, they're gonna come take my house, they're gonna take my property, they're gonna take, everything's gonna be taken. I don't think any of us have any desire for that, but like I said, what we have to look at here is some guidance on, as this property becomes sold by families and developers acquire it, how it's going to be developed. Because at that point in time, that's when the rubber meets the road. Like I said, right now, we're just kind of looking through the binoculars over on the peak, trying to see what's coming. Like I said, as all of us has lived in this valley a long time, we've watched this march from Salt Lake all the way down through all the farm ground, all the way down I-15 corridor, headed to Nephi. And the issue comes is yes, if everyone would just keep their property, keep it in the family, nobody sell their property, it wouldn't be an issue. But when the developers get a hold of it, then they want to do some of that property to turn their money over. And then it becomes an issue of the city. How do we plan? How do we plan utilities? What do we do with it? Because right now, like I said, when they come, at least we have a map out there to say that's not allowed use in this area right here. So it's hard to sit as a committee up here because usually the people that come to these meetings are the ones that are the most aggravated by the decisions to be made. And so sometimes I go home, my tail dragging in the dirt when I leave here, just because of that. You know, it's sometimes I don't know if this is the greatest job in the world to take on, because it's not a paying position. So anyway, like I said, I think there's been a lot of time and effort, but this is just looking into the future. That's all I'm gonna say.
I'm so grateful for the commissioner's comments and viewpoints. And we absolutely have to have a plan. If we fail to plan, we will lose the gem that is West Mountain. But some things I want to discuss with my fellow commissioners. We're looking at the Red Bridge development that contains an awful lot of high density, some of which is 1-bedroom homes and apartments. And then if we look at the surrounding area of this general plan, directly across the street from the west of the border of this plan, there's more ground, including a large tract of land owned by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And what we do with this plan will definitely predicate what the surrounding plans will look like. I wonder if this particular plan, while I agree with most of it, I think it's pretty good, I wonder if it has too much high density in it as it sits. And I wonder if we should work to minimize that and get it closer to that let's see, Roberts, the 2 units per acre average density rather than having it. I know it's just above that, but I wonder if we should work harder to get it down. I think we have plenty of high density. I think that the further west we should go, the less of it we should have to preserve what West Mountain could be. And I love any thoughts or feedback from other commissioners on such ideas.
Robert, in the orange section, that's where the higher density would be. What is the
It'd be townhomes, so it'd be 8 units per acre.
So the brown area can be up to 8 units.
Okay.
So the yellows 4.
So when you compare it to what is out there right now, it's extremely highly dense.
I think it's worth noting that the area that is the high density is buffered as you go further south by decreasing density out to the south border there. I think that speaks to what you're talking about, the Red Bridge development, the area across border from Red Bridge is low density.
and more discussion? I appreciate what you all have said. I agree with what you say. Having been on the commission for a while, I see that no one's ever, can't please everyone all the time. And this is just a guide. It's not what is going to happen. It's just a guide for the future. And it can change between now and when it's developed. It could be 20, 30 years from now, and we can have iterations moving forward. So
Can I ask a question? Commissioner Rowley, regarding your comment of possibly reducing the density, where would you consider that on the map?
Great question. I think we've got that half circle that represents the neighborhood commercial, right? So stores, gas station. There we've got some darker brown areas around that half circle, and then going up from that road. I guess I would like to see less high density on that west end, shift more of it to the east and phase it out as we go further west and make it back to larger lots. I think that'd be more conducive with the area, with traffic, less of a burden on law enforcement. Those are my findings as I've looked into this and seen similar areas.
Sorry, Brian. So this, are you talking about where my cursor is right here? Can you see that?
No, move it down to that right there. So we've got the road that's going through right there, and then we've got the half circle that your cursor's on. we've got high density, well, mixed high density around it right there, and then further to the east as well. Yep. And so I would like to see some of those blocks move to yellow, because if you go further to the east, that's an awful, yes, right there. That's a big area of townhomes. I know that road's supposed to be all great and wonderful one day, but man, we look at the mess that is the 800 South interchange already, and that's another concern is how quick can UDOT keep up with something like this if 20 years down the road this gets annexed, people pass away, their kids all sell the ground. I would like to have a better leg to stand on for the future of the city to say, no, we can't make this townhomes. Thank you, Robert, for pointing that out with your cursor.
Thanks for the clarification.
I would have some agreement with that, just because of where that node is up there, because I see what the development is going on here, and like I said, the concentration seems to be high-density housing. And so, I guess I look at it, and what's the first area that the developers are gonna come out and look at people to acquire properties from is like right now. Right there. Now the only saving grace is that the people that own the property, if they don't want to sell it.
Right. I think the other thing that I would mention about that road is, and that density along there, is it considers the fact that there has to be a transportation corridor there, right? So as future development occurs, that's something that the planning commission, city council would have to also consider, is zoning and all of those things are considered, that what existing and what necessary improvements would be required in order to support whatever is being asked for.
Robert, seemed like it was in one of our trainings that we had, they talked about the state's concern about urban sprawl. In other words, the footprint of the city's getting bigger, and they seem to be wanting to say, well, we don't want to water that many lawns, we'd rather build up and this kind of thing. Is that correct interpretation of what you're hearing?
Yeah, it's kind of a common practice that the more you sprawl, the more services you require, and those services are pretty expensive. And in order to just improve quality of life, we don't want people stuck in traffic all the time. We don't want people, dealing with all of the concerns that come with that. And so it's more appropriate to concentrate density where density can be supported. Those higher densities are generally along good transportation corridors with really good access to transit is the preferable thing. So in Payson City, we've determined that one of those areas for us is the station area where the future front runner will be. That's an area that we feel is a good spot for density, a lot of density actually, because it preserves areas like Spring Creek and West Mountain to be lower density. I know that there's a lot of yellow on that map, and again, I'm not married to one map or the other, but that yellow on that map represents what was discussed in the general plan process, and in the general plan, it identifies that area as low density residential, which is 2 to 5 units to the acre. But when we put density where it should be and where it's most supported, it allows for other areas of our city to be lower density without the necessary requirements of a lot of infrastructure. If this area was, 25 units to the acre, that infrastructure requirement and that grid system would be significantly different, right? So.
Thank you. Thank you, Robert. And I just want to point out too that the city's being pretty aggressive about approving high density in other areas. And we look at the Red Bridge development, for example, that's approved and being built, but yet there's no clear path forward for the 800 South interchange by Wendy's. And so we're just always playing catch up with the roads and interchange. And again, I just, as I've looked in this and I've studied it, I feel really logically, passionately that this plan is pretty good, but it still includes a bit too much high density on that end of West Mountain. It doesn't seem to fit. I guess with that, I'll go on a limb and make a motion to my fellow commissioners. I motion that we reject this current plan, send it back to staff, pending some amendments to change the density, to move it to higher density and get us closer to that 2 units per acre in this area.
Are you wanting to reject or to remand?
To remand. Because reject means it starts all over, doesn't it? I thought remand means it goes back with your suggested changes.
Robert, could you
means
clarify that? When I read, I thought that remand did not mean that.
Yeah, I think Commissioner Rowley, your request is to remand it back to staff for us to look at it again, see if we can change some densities and things like that.
Because I would second it if we're talking about a remand and not a reject.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner, for clarifying. I motion that we remand this back to staff to review the plan specifically regarding the areas of higher density and look to see about removing them and putting them to lower density to keep the infrastructure costs lower, the law enforcement response less, to hopefully preserve a little bit of water while doing so, and to help out for future congestion in that area and to preserve what West Mountain could be.
Right, and in that's the remand back also would require staff to change the one piece that says heavy industrial to come out. And then also the use of the wording of sewer instead of pressurized irrigation on that 3rd slide.
Oh, that's already corrected in the, that's just my slide.
Okay. But yeah, I would second what Commissioner Rowley has proposed.
Before we vote, I'd like to have a little discussion about what we're saying here.
I need some clarification.
Yeah, I feel like I get the reason for the motion and the thinking behind the motion, but I think it's a little vague. Because less density, how much less are we talking about? Are we trying to take away all the high density and the commercial node that's out there on, was it 2600 West? I can't remember.
Yeah, 5200.
52, okay. No, are we thinking to take that away? Because I'm thinking that that's the only, again, it's neighborhood commercial, but it's the only one out in that part of the area out there. So I'm a little bit nervous about cutting too much. I can see that perhaps we could cut some, but I'm a little concerned about how much we do there, because I think we want that commercial node there. And it makes sense to have higher density housing around a commercial node within walking distance of there.
But that would be commercial. That would be more like a small grocery store, neighborhood market of such, which is not unusual to have single family homes around that. Obviously, if it's different kinds of commercial, that's different kind of conversation. But Robert, to my understanding, this plan, that those red circles include things like gas stations, neighborhood markets, those kinds of things. But I'd love clarification if I'm wrong.
Well, I think you're right about that, but I guess I'm making the argument that if you have a condominium in your neighborhood there immediately adjacent to the commercial, then those people wouldn't have to take a vehicle to get to the store to shop. They could walk and this kind of thing. I think there's a place for some higher density housing in that immediate neighborhood for the use of that commercial. And I think we want to keep that commercial out in that area because there just isn't any other.
But that is going to be a main road. Once that road is built, that's a hop, skip, and jump away from the Red Bridge development. That's going to include all sorts of things, MTech, high density, stores, restaurants, and I also see that half circle that is the light commercial. I wonder if that's intended to be a full circle one day, and that's why it's a half circle. And so I just don't know about the can of worms that we could open there.
I guess I'm more comfortable with it than you are.
So I'd like to ask a clarifying question then. So is the suggestion, or if we were to bring this back to staff, it's been motioned and seconded, is the intent for us to look at eliminating all of that higher density area, like, so we wouldn't see any brown on this map? Is that the intent?
No, Robert, that's not my intent to completely eliminate it, but to phase it out gradually from east to west. I think it should stop sooner than it does, because it goes all the way across that map. And so I think we have a pretty wide section of it there to the east, and let's keep some of that, but let's get rid of some of those smaller light brown sections and put them back to larger lots. That would be my hopes with when we would take this back and look at it.
Okay, what about the area along, I'm just gonna call it Utah Avenue, and the commercial node there?
And that's a pretty big area as well. And I think that would be taken into consideration to see what we need to get done to make that our net density to 2 units per acre rather than 2.54.
So yeah, that's a second, but he's clear, because yeah, I didn't think we were talking about taking all of it out, but just doing a little more. Just
Are we ready for a vote?
we are, if my second was valid.
Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
All of those not in favor?
Actually, let's do a roll call since we have somebody online.
Okay, we will start with Commissioner Warner,
No,
Commissioner Hamerly,
Yes.
Commissioner Marzan, no, Commissioner McGrath, no, Commissioner Morgan,
No.
Commissioner Rowley.
Yes.
Okay. So this isn't resolved. We can do another motion. We can do more discussion. We need to have something to go through tonight. So if we're not remanding it, what are we doing? Are we recommending approval or rejection, or remanding with other directives? I voted no, and the reason that I voted no is I think it's okay to move forward, recommending approval to the city council. You're calling this high density, but really it's like mid density. That is not high density. So I have a hard time saying that it's too dense for the area. Like if it is a big road, personally, I wouldn't want to live on a single family house on a big road. That would be scary. I think if we had mid-range density there, that it would be a better option. That's my personal opinion. I don't know how.
I agree with what you just said, Kathy, about, like that, they put that high density there to buffer that busy road. And that was the discussion at some point. And I feel the same way. I wouldn't want to build a house on that with a single family that has a front yard, you know, that your kids would play on, where the mid density, we'll call it, is more, you know, you don't have a front yard to hang out in.
I think we have to look back at the plan itself, because like I said, this is kind of a vision for the future. And I don't know how many more times this is gonna be addressed as properties are acquired by developers and annexation comes in. You know, I mean, it's something we're gonna have to look at again and again. So I think overall, going forward, I think it's a good plan. I think it's something to keep in place that we can look back on going into the future. So if it's inappropriate, has anybody got any other comment?
I do agree with with where you guys are coming from, but I just want to remind us that hopefully that's not a crazy busy road, right? Hopefully that traffic phases out the further you go west. And the city has approved a lot of other much higher dense areas than this, yes. But when we look at the current surroundings and the plan as it sits, we're 5-acre lots out there with Utah County unincorporated. Then we move to 8 units per acre. That is a big difference. And I would, and yes, it can change. I want this plan to go forward, just not quite yet. I think it's almost there. It's just not quite there. And so I just feel strongly, I think it'd be better for the city to zone it bigger and then get requests to downsize it rather than we downsize it now and get more requests to downsize it even further in the future from developers trying to rezone it to make it even smaller. That's usually how the requests have gone. They're always requesting to change zoning to make it smaller, not bigger. And so I would love to start out with bigger lots, try to protect this area a little bit more in the future.
I think what you're proposing though is that we put the plan out and then with the low density and then just have this sort of understood agreement that we will allow it to be changed. I would much rather be able to be firm about a plan as we do it. If the idea is that someone can come in and convince the city easily to change a zoning plan, I think that's a problem. I think we need to have some integrity to our plan. And I think if we don't lay it out on this map to start at the beginning, then I think we're in some shaky water.
No, exactly right, Commissioner Warner. We have to have integrity with what we do. And so we've all sat here and had people request to change zoning. And unfortunately, some of those changes have been approved. And so what I'm saying is by us moving this to lower density, it's going to protect this area better than what we have in this plan right now. I don't want it to be changed after we approve it. I want to stick to the plan. I think it's so important we stick to the plan. We have to stick to the plan. I just don't want to stick to this plan right there on that particular stretch of spot where it's high density. So I want to move it down. That's my 2 cents. I know I've said it over and over, so I'll be done. I just want to make sure clarify that. I'm not saying we amend the plan just to change in the future. Let's amend the plan and stick to the plan.
Based on the comments, Madam Chairman, that I've heard, I'll go ahead and make the proposal that we submit to the city council a favorable recommendation of the amendment to the Payson City General Plan for the Spring Creek area specific plan without the mention of the heavy industrial wording in it as we have had it proposed.
We have a motion. We have a second. I'll second it.
Can we clarify motion? This is to move to city council. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes,
Thank you.
but Commissioner Warner still is digesting it, so I'm okay to make sure that we understand.
I'm a little confused by your comment about the heavy industrial.
Just to take out that word.
That wording, because in the initial plan, it said light and heavy, so
This
that
one right
X,
here.
Just off the map.
yeah, and
That
it
right
said, yeah, that would be removed, but I'm just making sure that it definitely is removed before it goes forward, because yeah, I'm heavy already, so I'll rather have less heavy in this plan.
Oh, I seconded it. Okay, since Commissioner Rowley's online, let's do another roll call. So Commissioner Rowley, do you approve?
Sorry, you repeat the motion, Commissioner Marzan.
The motion is to recommend to the city council that they adopt the plan as it is.
No.
Commissioner Morgan,
No.
Commissioner Brinkerhoff,
Yes.
Marzan is a yes.
He moves yes.
corners, yes.
Okay. This will move on to city council. I don't know if we have a date yet of when.
Likely next week.
Next week, okay. Thank you everyone for coming and participating. If I know you think you weren't heard, but you were heard. Not really, yeah, right, not really.
Encourage you to stay engaged.
Thanks, Maggie. Okay, let's move on to item 5.2. It's an action item, not a hearing, about the RNC annexation number 2. The request by Justin Hill to annex 40.5 acres into the municipal boundaries of Payson, Utah. The property is located on the southwest corner of 400 West, 900 North.
So no presentation today. I'm just going to share with you the staff report, if it'll ever come up. There it is. And answer questions. There will be a public hearing on this at City Council. And that's how annexations work. To give you a little bit of clarification, you can see on there the property owners involved and their parcels. Let me scroll down to the map so that you can see what parcels are being affected. So you can see I-15 in the kind of southwest corner there. You can see the northeast corner of the red road there. That is, what was it, 9,600 for the county, I believe is what it's called. Just off of the map there to the east would be the bowling alley. So that's where this property is just to the west of the bowling alley area there. The intent of the applicant sponsor is to annex this property. It's approximately 40.5 acres. With that intent, they intend to annex it and have it all zoned light industrial. Staff is supportive of that, but not necessarily married to that suggestion. So with that being said, similar to what was talked about in the previous plan, existing property owners and homeowners would be able to continue to do what they want to do, even if this came into the city as light industrial. They'd continue doing their lifestyles and their the way they live, if they have animal rights, their crop production, all of those things, and they could do that in perpetuity. But if and when any development were to occur, then that development would have to occur in agreement to the light industrial zoning. So if the Planning Commission and or City Council feels as if some of this property should be zoned otherwise, then we would be willing to modify that as suggested. Otherwise, I would just leave this for your questions and comments. And I believe the applicant is online, the applicant sponsor. And then we also have a gentleman in the audience here that could potentially answer questions as well.
Just for my memory is that this area on the plan is planned as industrial. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
Staff felt as if, just for a little bit of clarification, staff felt as if this 400 West was a good dividing line for, on the east side of that road is some higher density apartment buildings, and we felt as if this was a good dividing line for the light industrial versus the high density residential, opposed to staggering that.
I'll just put my 2 cents in because I live adjacent to light industrial right now, and it's not completely terrible. It has its moments, so I think having it next to the higher density is okay.
Michael, on this, we have the sponsor. What is the threshold to get an annexation of this size to all of these property owners? Do they all approve of this, or are there some that are against it, or is this a sweeping thing where if so many of your neighbors agree to it, then you're included as well. Can you speak to that process and what has played out in this particular case, please?
Yes, so let me scroll back up to the let's see if I believe we've got them listed in here.
Yeah, you do. You go up, Michael, and you had it right there on the left, the property owners.
So Max Lerwell was not a signer on the petition, and I believe Marianne Clegg, is that correct?
No, Fernando.
Oh, sorry, Fernando Carroll were not signers on the petition. All the others were. So to give you some perspective, the smallest parcel on there is Clegg's, and then I'm not sure which one is. Oh, that's Lerwell. And which one is the Fernando Carroll? Yeah, I believe it's one more down. I believe it's that one there. So the majority are in favor of it.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Just to be clear, you're, of course, these uses that are on those properties right now are grandfathered in, but there are some limitations. They would not be able to further develop that use beyond what they're doing today if this was annexed in and zoned light industrial.
So they would be able to continue doing what they're doing. They wouldn't be able to necessarily expand what they're doing, but they would be able to continue that existing thing as long as they're doing it.
It's not fair to ask this question, but I'm gonna ask it anyway. Is there a likelihood that we're going to very soon see some industrial development proposed, or would we be all right to recommend this come in as an A5?
So I do know, so the applicant sponsor is Justin Hill, and I do know that he intends to submit a site plan application shortly after annexation for light industrial. I do not know about other properties.
You know, which properties is?
So Justin, I wish I actually identified this. Maybe I can pull it up on the county map, but Justin owns that kind of square piece there where his cursor is.
Okay.
Right there, yeah. And then the vacant one, you can see like the little gray dots and stuff, those are homes. So the vacant one in the middle, sandwiched right there, he owns those two.
He's got two in there.
And I think he has another one to the west, right there.
What was the staff's recommendation then on this?
Staff recommends that that the annexation go forward and that it be zoned to the light industrial. One thing that Robert mentioned to me that I should point out, there was some opposition to this annexation, but with the new state law, those complaints were not legitimized with the state criteria that is required for an opposition.
But they would have been before the law change?
I don't think so.
Given the fact that his name that was going to propose this.
Justin Hill.
Given the fact that Justin Hill owns 3 pieces of separated property, I don't think it makes any sense to bring this in different zoning. I think as it comes, it should all be zoned the same, industrial, if we do it.
Discussion?
Just to clarify, is Payson City surrounding that on any other sides?
Just the kind of light orange or yellow color, that is the city boundaries. You can see there's a little island in there. That is just a discrepancy in the boundaries of the parcels. That would not create an island right there.
Thank you, Michael.
And this is for information, or we are submitting
It would be a recommendation.
So we do need a motion.
So I make a motion then that we recommend the RNC annexation request by Justin Hill to annex 40.5 acres into the municipal boundaries of Payson, Utah, to go to the city council. In favor.
Second.
All right, we will do a roll call vote. Commissioner Warner,
Yes.
Commissioner Haley,
Yes.
Farzan is a yes, Brickroff? Yes. Morgan
Yes.
and Rowley.
Yes.
Okay. We'll go on to city council and they will have a public hearing. Sorry, I should keep comments to myself. On to commission reports and staff reports and training. Does anyone have anything to add?
I think you've been well trained tonight. So good job.
Can I just say something? I'm glad that you said that that's not high density, because 8 units is not high density. They don't, and I understand that they're my neighbors and they're mad at me, and I do have a big plot out there, but, you know, it's still got a road going right in the middle of my property. And there have been several developers that, when they find that out, they don't want to deal with it. So when they say that I have a part of it, I have had no part of that. I mean, I didn't even know it was coming down my property until it came before the city council. So I'm glad you said that, because 8 is not high density.
It is not high density. When I think high density, I'm thinking
30.
Yeah.
I guess it's all perspective. We'll agree to disagree.
Maybe I'm out of bounds with this because I don't live in Payson, but I work here, I play here. And in looking at that map, I think what was really important, what Robert pointed out, very important thing is those little dots on the map represented people's houses. Where the brown was, that was the least amount of dots covered by anything. If you move that brown anywhere else on the map, it was gonna encompass more dots. And so I think
Actually, there was a place, if you pulled it up, I can show you where it went to anybody's house.
well, luckily you're on city council,
I
you
know,
can point that out.
I've tried.
But I just think that's important to point out, like, I think it affects the least amount of people there, and it makes sense to have it on that corridor, like you said, because who wants to have their front yard on there? I would rather have as many houses or density on that busy road and create a barrier for people on either side to have more peace, so I kind of that well.
And they said, like Brian said, that hopefully it's not a busy road, but it's still gonna be busier than a subdivision, so. I think it was smartly, you guys have always been working on it for 2 years plus, and I think you guys have done a lot of research and planning for it.
I would just caution you, that item is close, so we probably shouldn't be discussing it too much.
We're done. I did want to say this is probably the only meeting we have this month.
Yeah.
That is correct. So we are not going to make you come the night before Thanksgiving.
That's very kind.
Happy Thanksgiving. Give thanks.
So we will see each other in December once someone makes a final motion.
A motion to adjourn. He did, that was by Commissioner Warner. I second.
Second, everyone in favor?
Yes.
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 Thanks, everybody. Ryan, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan.
Thank you, guys.
Your tan does say you've been somewhere with a lot of sun.
I'm afraid so. I miss Utah already.
Safe travels back.
Thank you, guys.